senator from Alexandria. We're here today because we're going to present the governor's office with 6,800 who believe it doesn't make sense to impose a punitive annual tax on hybrid vehicles. And we were overwhelmed with the number of Virginians who signed on this petition in just about 3 weeks. We had Virginians from Campbell, Martinsville, Roanoke, Stanton, Charlottesville, Midlothian, Henrico, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Danville, Fairfax, and Alexandria. And that is a small representation and doesn't include many of the smaller communities that signed on. We did this because we believed it wasn't fair, and whatever people feel about the transportation bill, we've heard from our colleagues that they feel this portion of the transportation bill is one that doesn't belong there. There's 7.5 million cars in Virginia, and about 92,000 hybrids. And those hybrid owners are doing the right thing. They purchased their cars to help the environment, and they paid more money for them. They pay more personal property taxes for them. And now the state will be asking them to pay $100 a year more just for owning them and doing the right thing. We just found out that moped owners who might buy a used moped or any kind of moped, electric moped I should say, would be also expected to pay $100 a year unless something changes in that bill as well. We talk about energy independence all the time here in Virginia, and here we are discouraging energy independence if this bill is allowed to remain as it is, and again, doing the wrong thing. So we just want to show you, we've got a box of petitions that'll be delivered in just a few moments to the governor's office, and I'm going to turn it over to Delegate Scott Surovell.
Thanks, Senator. As Senator Ebbin said, we've received an overwhelming amount of feedback on our petition since it was put out about 3 weeks ago. 6,800 signatures from all across Virginia, and they're not just from Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads or Richmond. They're from all over Virginia. Small towns, medium-sized towns, every town, Southwest, Southside, Shenandoah Valley, Central Virginia, the whole way across the state. The themes that we've heard, I would say, are about, I would categorize them 4 different ways. First of all, I would say a lot of people feel like this is a tax on virtue. Normally when the government taxes something, they don't tax something we're trying to encourage. A lot of people feel like purchasing a hybrid, saving energy, is conduct that we are trying to encourage in our public policy and not discourage. I've heard some people say that express some exasperation about this and ask questions like, what are we going to tax next? Non-smokers or vegetables? Why are we singling out this one particular form of technology? Bicycles don't pay for the roads they ride on. Pedestrians don't pay for the sidewalks they walk on. I've had people suggest that we're going to tax bicycles or shoes next. It seems kind of irrational to be punishing people with a $100 tax for behavior that we're trying to encourage, not only to save energy but to reduce congestion. Another theory, or another thing that we've heard, is that it necessarily singles out a technology. Motorcycles get great gas mileage, so do mopeds. There are many gas-powered cars that get much better gas mileage than hybrids. For example, a Denali hybrid or a Tahoe hybrid get 21 miles a gallon right now. And there are certain gas cars that have come out recently. A Fiat gas-powered car came out that gets 50 miles a gallon. So to single out this technology just seems very irrational and a very sort of blunt, imprecise way to sort of make tax policy. Another theme we've heard is a lot of people who already own these vehicles feel like this has been a bait and switch. The government has set up a series of incentives to encourage people to purchase this kind of technology over the last 8 years now. There were federal tax credits. I think the state may have had some kind of a program or rebate, and the state has offered people incentives to get on the HOV lanes. If they purchase a hybrid, they're allowed to use certain HOV lanes if they get a certain license plate. And a lot of people feel like they were encouraged to purchase these cars, and now the government is now pulling the rug out from under them and telling them now we're going to tax you for doing what we asked you to do. And that leads to another point, which is that we already pay, as Senator Ebbin mentioned. Hybrid owners already pay probably about a 10% premium for the vehicle they purchase. They pay a higher car titling tax because that car costs more. The third thing they pay is they pay higher personal property taxes every year because the personal property tax is only phased out on a vehicle that's worth $20,000 or less. They also, if you want to drive on the HOV lanes, you also pay $25 a year for a special HOV plate. But now, on top of all those things, the government is essentially asking you to pay an additional $100 a year after already paying more for the same privilege everybody else has to drive. It doesn't make sense. And the last thing I'll say is that the numbers don't make any sense at all. For example, if you take a hybrid vehicle that gets 45 miles per gallon, the average vehicle in the United States fleet sold last year in 2012 got 23.9 miles a gallon. If you take the spread in taxes that are not paid by a car that gets 45 miles a gallon at the gas tax rate that we just passed, which is 11 cents a gallon, that hybrid owner is only failing to pay about $30 a year in taxes. To require that person to then pay $100 for not paying $30 is just irrational. It doesn't make any sense. And again, that's a hybrid on the high end of the hybrid efficiency range. There are many hybrids that get a lot less than that. And so this policy it does not make any sense in any way you look at it, in any justification we've heard. The numbers don't match up. It's unfair. It taxes virtue. People feel like the government has now pulled the rug out, baited and switched them. It's not good policy. I mean, we're hoping the governor repeals or does an amendment to take this language out of the bill.
What's the alternative?
Well, the governor has an array of revenue choices that he could do, whether it's keeping the gas tax closer to where it is now, or dealing with any of the components that are in the bill. You know, several years ago there was a bill that included, was it 3202? The transportation bill a number of years ago that included abuser fees, and it was just wrong to include those. Bottom line is it's wrong to include a punitive hybrid tax. So we're open to the governor's suggestions as to where he might take extra money. But I think it's important also to realize in the scope of this bill, it's a relatively small amount per year. While it may only be about $10 million a year in total, what it takes from the owners of these vehicles is too much.
It's only about 1% of the overall revenue of the statewide plan. It's less than 1% of the overall revenue if you include the regional packages. It's a very, very minor part of this legislation.
I think a lot of hybrid users we're looking at today. During the original bills that you passed, it didn't have it in, and then all of a sudden, once the conference committee comes out, it's back in. Can you describe what changed between the first passage and the chamber and the conference?
Sure. Neither Delegate Surovell or myself were wisely named to the conference committee. We would have liked to have input on that. But it's important to note that, as you just said, that neither chamber, whether it's the House or the Senate, voted to include a hybrid tax at any point until the final bill, and that was a take it or leave it vote that many of our colleagues chose to take it. But no matter how we look at it, the math just doesn't add up.
Go ahead.
Sure, right when we're done. Oh, you want to look at them now? Or how about just when we're done?
That's fine.
Right when we're done, we'll do that.
I just want to ask if you had any conversations with the governor's office, if they at all seem open to changing this aspect.
Scott, I have not spoken to you.
I've had one electronic exchange with his policy staff, and they didn't really take a position. They mentioned that they certainly received a lot of negative feedback about it. That was all they said.
Yeah, I think it's also characteristic of the governor's office, and this is more from your experience than something that I can say from experience, where they don't usually comment on bills until he's ready to review or sign before the veto session.
All right, let's see those signatures
Okay.
before we freeze off.
That's all I do.
Okay.